The most racist Arabs I've ever met weren't even real Arabs. I'm not exaggerating. I've lived through it. I felt it in my skin, in my bones, in the way people would look at me like I was nothing. And the ones who did it the most, the ones who made me question if I even belonged to this ummah, they weren't from the Gulf. They weren't from Saudi or Yemen. They weren't North Africans. They were Lebanese, Syrians, the Levantines as a whole. Yeah, I said it, and you know it's true. Before I made it to the UK, I spent a chunk of my life living and working in Lebanon. It was supposed to be a stepping stone, just a few years to get on my feet and make my way somewhere better. But instead, it ended up being some of the darkest years of my life. Not because of war, not because of poverty, because of the way I was treated for being Sudanese, for being black. They didn't hide it. There was no shame. If I made a mistake at work, even something minor, my boss would call me Abid, which translates to slave, over and over again. Abid this, Abid that. And if I said anything back, if I dared to act like I was a human being, they'd look at me like I'd lost my mind, like I didn't know my place. That's the thing that broke me most. How normal it was for them, how casual. You'd think I was back in the colonial days or something, but no, this was the 21st century, and it wasn't some old racist white man doing it. It was someone who claimed to be my Muslim brother, someone who prayed and fasted, but then turned around and called me a slave the moment he didn't get his way. It messed with my head. I didn't know how to process it. And you know what's worse? These same people, these Levantine Arabs, they switch up who they are depending on who's watching. When it suits them, they're Arab, proud, united with the Ummah. We are all one. But the moment they want to impress the West, suddenly they're white, suddenly they're Phoenicians, Europeans. We're not like those Gulf Arabs, they say. We're more civilized, more modern. Pick a side. You can't be Arab when you want sympathy and white when you want power. My dear brothers and sisters, subhanallah, if you're hearing this, Allah has placed a yearning in your heart, a call to live a life where your deen shines bright, unburdened by the fitna of this dunya. Are you feeling that pull, that restlessness to find a righteous spouse in a land where your deen thrives? Or a parent yearning to raise your children speaking Arabic in Muslim Arab countries like Tunisia, Oman, Algeria or Saudi Arabia, where they are not only surrounded by the deen, but the Arabic language bringing the Quran's words to life? Or perhaps you're drawn to the Muslim lands of Asia like Indonesia or Malaysia to protect your faith. I wrote 5 practical steps to plan your hijrah, to guide you to a life rooted in the deen, inshallah. This ebook isn't just advice, it's a roadmap. Learn to purify your intention, choose a land that nurtures your soul, secure halal income, and prepare yourself and your family spiritually. Whether you seek a spouse, a safe home for your kids, or a place to preserve your deen, these steps are your guide. And like your brother in Islam, I'm sharing this wisdom with you as if we were doing it over a cup of mint green tea, my favorite. Don't let fear hold you back. Purchase 5 practical steps to plan your hijrah now by clicking the link below. Start your journey to a new life, inshallah. Act today. Your deen and family deserve it. There's no such thing as a white Arab with colored eyes and hair. Go to the Gulf. Go to Saudi, Oman, Yemen. Tell me if you find anyone who looks like a Frenchman walking around saying, Habibi. You won't. Real Arabs are tanned, brown-skinned, sunburnt people from the desert, not pale-skinned people who look like Italians and Southern Europeans. I'm not trying to be petty. I'm just telling you what I lived. As a Sudanese man, I know we're not Arab by blood. We're not from the tribes of the peninsula, but we speak Arabic. Our culture is Arab-influenced. We're Muslims, and most of us are black, and I was reminded of that. Every single day I lived in Lebanon. Every taxi ride, every job, every time I walked into a store and felt the stares, every conversation where I'd be spoken to like I was a child, every moment they made sure I knew I wasn't one of them. And you know what the worst part is? Some of them really believe they're better than you, just because their skin is a shade lighter, just because they've got straight noses and European hair, as if that makes them chosen, as if the deen of Allah cares about melanin. Subhanallah. You can't say anything though, because if you do, you're dividing the ummah, you're causing fitna. But what about the fitna of walking into a masjid and being treated like dirt because of your skin? Nobody talks about that. I'm telling this story now because I've healed enough to look back at it without rage, but I won't lie, I still carry the scars, and I know I'm not the only one. So this is for every black Muslim who's ever been told he doesn't belong. For every Sudanese, Somali, Ethiopian, Nigerian brother who's been made to feel like a servant in a land that calls itself Muslim. For every time someone whispered Abid like you wouldn't hear it. For every job you were denied. For every sister you couldn't marry because she's white and you're black. Wallahi, I see you and I feel you. And to my so-called Arab brothers from the Levant, you don't have to like what I'm saying, but if you're honest, really honest, you know I'm not lying. This is the truth you don't want to admit. I landed in Beirut thinking I was about to start a new life. You have to understand something. Coming from Sudan, your options are limited, especially if you're a young black man just trying to make ends meet. I didn't come to Lebanon for luxury. I came because I needed work, and because someone I knew said it was a decent stepping stone to eventually make it to Europe or the Gulf. I was hopeful, tired, but hopeful. That first week, I remember thinking, Inshallah, this will go smoothly. I had a job lined up through a guy who knew a guy. Nothing official, of course, just the usual backdoor migrant route. You don't ask too many questions when you're desperate. I ended up working at a construction site just outside Beirut. Long hours, cramped living quarters, and barely enough pay to cover my food and rent. But I didn't complain. That's not how we're raised. At first, it was just the usual tough life you expect when you're doing physical labor in a foreign country. Then slowly, it started to hit me. Something was off. The way they spoke to me wasn't just harsh, it was personal. I'd hear jokes in the break room, always about Abid. Sometimes it was meant to be funny. Sometimes they said it directly to my face. The first time my foreman said it, I froze. Ya Abid, go clean that up. I thought maybe I misheard him. Maybe it was just a word I didn't catch properly. But then he repeated it, louder, looking me dead in the eyes, like he wanted me to know he meant it. That was the first crack in the wall. After that, the cracks became splits. Every mistake I made, and I'm human, I made a few, was met with insults. Not about the work, about me, about my skin, about my country, about how I looked more African than Arab. And then the story started. How they talk about Sudanese workers like we were animals. How I'd hear someone say, don't trust them, they're lazy. Or, you have to watch these types, they steal. As if my passport had thief written on it. It wasn't just a job either. The streets were no better. I'd walk into a corner shop and get stared down like I just walked into someone's house uninvited. I'd ask a question in Arabic and they'd pretend they didn't understand me. Not because I was wrong, but because they didn't want to respond. Subhanallah, I couldn't believe this was supposed to be a Muslim country. You think racism is subtle? Not in Lebanon. It was loud, open, proud. One day I was queuing for the bus and some teenager walked past and said, "Hey slave, going back to the jungle?" His friends burst out laughing like it was the funniest thing ever. I didn't even flinch. I was numb by then. You know what hurts the most? It's not the insults. It's not even the word Abid itself. It's the way they looked at me like I was genuinely beneath them, like I wasn't even human. Just some temporary body taking up space in their world. And when I tried to speak up, I remember telling one of the managers at work that it was unacceptable, that I was a Muslim like them, that they shouldn't speak this way. He laughed in my face, literally. If you can't handle it, he said, go back to Africa. That broke something in me. Not because I expected luxury or even kindness, I'm used to hardship, but because I didn't expect it from fellow Muslims, people who raise their hands in prayer 5 times a day, but can still call you a slave because you look a bit different to them. What deen are you practicing that allows that? And don't get me started on the apartments they put us in. I shared a room with 6 other guys, no heating in winter, no air conditioning in summer. Cockroaches were everywhere. If the water worked, you were lucky. If the landlord came around, you stayed quiet. Otherwise, he might kick you out for no reason. And guess who didn't get treated like that? The lighter-skinned workers, the Syrians, the Palestinians, the Iraqis. Even Egyptians got more basic respect than us. And if you were Lebanese, forget it. You were untouchable. They got proper beds, proper hours, proper wages. We were just bodies to them, temporary, disposable. I used to ask myself, is this really the ummah? I had to stop thinking about it, because if I let it in too much, it would eat me alive. I remember one day I was sitting on the rooftop of our building after work. Sunset was falling over the city. I was dirty, exhausted, and my back was killing me from lifting cement blocks all day. I looked around and thought, I came here with hope. Now I'm just trying to survive. I prayed and whispered under my breath, Ya Allah, just give me strength. Just help me get out of here. There was no one to talk to, nobody to confide in, because if you complain, they'll say you're soft. If you speak up, you're angry. If you ask for respect, you're entitled. So I swallowed it all, day in, day out. That's how Lebanon broke me. Not with violence, not with war, but with the slow daily grind of being treated like less, of hearing a bead so many times that I started to flinch when I heard any word similar to it, of waking up each day knowing no matter how hard I worked, I'd never be seen as equal. And still, I never missed a prayer. I never lost my deen, because the people failed me, but Allah never did. Salamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. Want to strengthen our ummah and support this channel? Become a channel member today, inshallah. Your membership fuels my mission to build a vibrant Muslim community, sharing stories and knowledge that we can all learn from. Your generosity reflects the nature of charity we Muslims have in our hearts, alhamdulillah. Choose a tier and enjoy exclusive perks like members-only videos and special shout-outs. Together, let's grow this blessed community. Click join now and be part of something special. You want to know what made everything worse? It wasn't just the racism. It was the way these people played with identity like it was a costume. One minute they're waving the Arab flag, screaming, "We are one ummah." And the next minute they're dyeing their hair blonde and saying, "We're not Arabs, we're Phoenicians." I kid you not, I heard that with my own ears. Some guy at work, Christian, light-skinned, Lebanese, was chatting with another employee, and I overheard him say, "Arabs are backwards. We're Phoenicians, white, civilized." 2 days later, the same guy is posting online about Palestine and the Arab struggle. Wallahi, I've never seen people switch up so fast depending on who they're talking to. It's a strange identity complex. In front of Westerners, we're Levantines, we're Mediterranean, we're basically European. But when it's convenient, when they want solidarity from the rest of the Muslim world, suddenly they're full Arab. Brothers in Deen, Arab unity, Habibi, we're all the same. No, we're not the same. And some of you make it painfully obvious every day. Let me break it down. When you walk around Beirut, especially in the wealthier areas, you'll see women walking around with dyed hair, light contact lenses, Euro-style fashion. The men, straightened hair, trying to look French or Italian. You think they're doing that because they love culture? No. They hate being associated with anything Arab, unless it benefits them. Then on Fridays, you'll see some of those same people put on a thobe or hijab, show up at the masjid and act like a totally different person. I remember one guy at a construction site, Lebanese guy, always going on about how proud he was to be Arab, how we all need to support Palestine, how the Ummah needs unity. That same guy, he refused to sit and eat lunch with me, said it wasn't right to share food with an Abid. So what is it? Are we brothers in Deen, or am I a second-class Muslim because I'm black? Subhanallah. Let me say something real. I've met Arabs from the Gulf, Saudi, Yemen, Oman, who are the real Arabs and not cosplaying or LARPing like they do in Lebanon. They treat me with the utmost respect. I'm not saying they're perfect, but there's a difference. They know who they are. They're not confused. They don't try to pass as Arab when it suits them. You see them. Brown skin, thick dialect, tribal names. No shame in being Arab. No attempt to erase it. And most of them, they treat you based on your character. Based on how you carry yourself. Not just your skin. I even met a Saudi brother once while transiting through Dubai. Just a quick airport chat, but it stuck with me. He saw I was Sudanese, smiled and said, "Sudanis are our brothers in the deen." I love the Sudani accent. He didn't talk down to me. He didn't treat me like a foreigner. He saw a fellow Muslim. Compare that to Lebanon, where I once got laughed at for pronouncing a word differently. Your Arabic sounds like a donkey speaking. That's what one guy told me, in front of everyone. I stayed quiet, not because I was scared, because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. And here's another thing they won't admit. They look down on Gulf Arabs too. Oh yeah, don't let the fake brotherhood fool you. Behind closed doors, I've heard Lebanese people mock Saudis, call them camel riders, say they're backwards Bedouins. And yet, they'll queue up for jobs in Riyadh or Dubai like it's paradise on earth. They'll smile in the Gulf and say, my brother, then come back home and laugh behind their backs. It's all convenience, white when it gets them respect. Arab when it gets them sympathy, fame, and likes on social media, like TikTok. Muslim when it gets them solidarity, but real with none of it. They've got the public thinking Arabs are white when they try to appropriate being Arab on social media. What a bunch of fake phonies. You're as much as an Arab as someone from Turkey or Iran. You may speak Arabic like us Sudanis, but as much as we are not truly Arabs, neither are you. The thing is, when you grow up black, especially from a place like Sudan, you don't get the luxury of switching. You don't get to pretend. You're either accepted or you're not, and 90% of the time, you're not. We're Arabic speaking, yes, but we're not from the tribes of Arabia. Our skin, our noticeable black features and hair make sure people never let us forget that. And yet, even with all that, we never deny who we are. We don't go around saying we're not really African. We don't try to bleach our way out of our identity. We don't switch accents to impress anyone. What you see is what you get. There's a kind of dignity in that, even when the world tries to rob it from you. There were days in Lebanon where I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe if I changed the way I dressed, the way I spoke, lightened up my skin a bit, maybe then I'd be accepted. But that's how racism breaks you. It makes you want to erase yourself just to be treated human. One time I saw a Bangladeshi brother working security outside a hotel. Quiet guy, always did his job. I watched the guest throw a piece of paper at him like he was a dog. No reason, just to see if he'd flinch. He didn't. I walked up to him later and said, "You okay, brother?" He smiled, tired, and said, "Allah sees. That's enough." That sentence pierced my heart. Allah does see everything, because that's the only justice we get sometimes, not from society, not from governments, and definitely not from the Levantine elite who think being pale gives status. The truth is, a lot of these people worship whiteness more than they worship Allah. They may never say it out loud, but their actions scream it. The fairer your skin, the more human you are to them. The darker you are, the more disposable. And yet they have the audacity to talk about unity, about brotherhood, about the ummah. Save it. Until you see your black Muslim brothers as equals, don't talk to me about ummah. Until you stop using the word abid like it's casual slang, don't talk to me about deen. Until your identity stops changing with your audience, don't talk to me about pride. Because all I've seen from them is theatrics. I'll never forget the day I left Lebanon. I didn't cry. I didn't feel joy either. Just silence. Just numbness. Like I'd been holding my breath for years and didn't even know it. I boarded that flight like a man walking out of a prison. Not because the gates were open, but because someone finally lost the keys. When I touched down in the UK, everything felt lighter. It wasn't perfect, not even close, but for the first time in a long time, I could walk into a shop and not have the whole place go quiet. I could ask a question and not be mocked for my Arabic. I could be Sudanese and not immediately marked as lesser. I remember the first masjid I went to here in London. Nigerian brothers, Somalis, Pakistani elders, even some white reverts, all praying under the same roof. I stood in the back, taking it in. The call to prayer echoed through the hallway. I closed my eyes and whispered, Alhamdulillah. But the healing didn't start there. It started after. Because when you've spent years being told you're subhuman, being treated with dignity feels confusing. You start second-guessing it. Do they actually respect me? Or are they just pretending? You flinch when someone raises their voice. You brace yourself for the slur that might be coming next. That's what Lebanon did to me. It was traumatic. Even here, in a place that's far better in so many ways, I sometimes catch myself watching the way Levantine Arabs move in the masjid, how they speak, who they greet, who they ignore. And I still feel it, that cold wall, that invisible ranking system. Not all of them, no. I've met a few good ones here. Brothers who have good morals, who see you as equal. But I've also heard it again, that word, abid. Not shouted, not thrown in your face like back in Beirut, but whispered, smirked, used when they think no one's listening. And I hear it, and every time I remember why I stopped expecting much from people. You know what's strange? I sometimes miss Sudan more than I expected to. Not because it's easier, life back home was tough, but because at least there, no one called me a stranger for being myself. At least there, I didn't have to explain why I spoke Arabic. I didn't have to prove I was part of the deen. Here and in Lebanon before it, I've had to wear my religion like armor. I've had to remind people that I belong, not because Allah questioned me, but because His creation did. Still, there's something else I've gained. Something stronger than resentment. Clarity. I know who I am now. I'm Sudanese. And I say that with pride. Not because of the language I speak, the shade of my skin, or the passport I hold, but because of the shahada on my tongue and the sujood on my forehead. That's what ties me to this ummah, not approval, not social ranking. And if some people, Levantine or not, can't accept that, that's their problem. I didn't come to the UK expecting perfection, but what I did find is this: space. Space to grow, space to breathe, space to find brothers who don't flinch when they shake your hand, who don't see your skin and look for your worth, who hear your name and say, Mashallah, Samir. I've met a few Sudanese brothers. Good people. Those moments are rare, but when they come, they feel like healing. It will take time, I know that. There are days where I still carry that bitterness, days where I hear a certain accent or walk into a room and see a familiar kind of look, and it all comes rushing back. But I don't let it own me, not anymore, because now I know I was never the problem. I was never too black, never too Sudanese, never too anything. They were just too blind. And to any brother reading this from Sudan, Somalia, Nigeria, wherever, if you've ever been treated like you don't belong in the ummah, I need you to hear me clearly. You do. You belong in the masjid. You belong in the line. You belong in the deen of Allah. Even if they call you a bead, walk with your head high. Even if they mock your accent, speak the truth. Even if they turn their backs, Allah never does. Wallahi, I'm still healing. But at least now, I'm healing in a place where I can breathe, where I can be, where I can pray without shame, without fear. They called me a bead to break me, but I turned that word into a reminder. I'm a servant of Allah, and that's the highest title I could ever carry. Alright mates, I've just finished reading Samir's story, and subhanallah, it hit a nerve. This wasn't just another rant or online complaint. This was raw, lived. The type of story most people never hear because brothers like Samir get talked about, but rarely get the mic. What stuck out to me wasn't just the racism he faced, but who it came from. And honestly, I've seen it too. I'm Libyan, proudly brown, Arab, Muslim, and my roots, they go straight back to the Arabian Peninsula. We've always said it. We're Muslims first, Arabs second. That's just how we were raised. That's the deen that runs through our blood. But when I came across some Lebanese and Levantine folks, not all, but enough to notice a pattern, wallahi, I felt like I was watching people play identity dress up depending on where they were. In the UK, they're suddenly white. In the Middle East, they're Arab. Around Muslims, they're Muslim. But ask them what they really identify with. Some can't even answer without twisting themselves into knots. It reminded me a lot of what I've seen with some Iranians and Persians in the West. You know the ones. Change their names to Mike or Alex, strip their accent, distance themselves from the deen and their Middle Eastern background. As if proximity to whiteness means safety, success, superiority. But here's the truth. It doesn't. Unlike them, we Libyans don't water ourselves down. We don't hide our names or apologize for our origins. We're Arabs, yes, but Muslims first. Our link to the Arabian tribes isn't just something we toss around for clout. It's a living connection, something we carry with us with pride, but never arrogance. So when I hear someone like Samir talk about being called a bead by people who don't even know where they stand in their own identity, it just proves how deep this disease of racism runs. And sadly, some of the worst of it doesn't come from the West. It comes from within the Ummah. It's not just a cultural misunderstanding, it's a sickness of the heart. And until we start being honest about it, calling it what it is, brothers like Samir will keep being pushed to the edges of a community they already belong to. Let's be clear, Islam doesn't have room for this. The Deen doesn't care about your skin tone, your dialect, or your last name, but some Muslims do, and that's the problem. Samir's story is a reminder to all of us to look in the mirror, to clean our hearts, and to never let our pride in our background turn into superiority. If this story hit you like it hit me, drop a comment. Let's talk. More stories coming soon, inshallah.
الوطن اللي جانب كان حول الله سقاها بسيل شبوب بداري ماهر